What's up, guys? Back and me is here today. We got Smallville, Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot. Okay, this show will be replacing The Wilds. Because, yes, I'm no longer doing The Wilds. That show is... I only did 3 episodes, but yeah. I decided to discontinue The Wilds because after Episode 1, they just stopped not getting the views in. So, yeah, we're on Smallville. So, yeah, this episode starts off with a meteors crashing down to Earth, and yeah, and we see, and we see Jonathan and Martha Kent going into like this flower shop, and they meet Nell, I think her name is, Nell, and yeah, so. And then they meet her niece, her 3-year-old niece, Lana, and Lana is in this episode. The young Lana is voiced by Miranda Cosgrove. So yeah, so she said, "Would you like to make a wish?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she says, "Abracadabra," and then they leave, and then Johnson's like, "Hey Martha, I know what you wish for," and she wished that they could have a kid. Cause yeah, so then the meteor shout, and then we all see Lex and his father, and Lex is like, and Lana's like, "Don't be scared, Lex," and he's like, "Don't close your eyes, Lex," and he's like, "I want to." So yeah. So while Lionel's doing a thing, Lex stumbles into a cornfield and he sees this guy hang to a scarecrow, and he's like, "Help me," but Lex just doesn't, and then the meteor shower hits Lex, and it also hits the kid on the scarecrow, and yeah. So yeah, and then Lana sees her parents, and then her parents are looking up at the mirrors, and then the mirror hits their car, and they die. Yeah, and Lana is just is all sad. She's like, "No," and I get why she's sad. I get, because she's lost her parents. So then Lex is hit by the meteor shower, and then when Lionel finds him, Lex has no hair. Because prior to the meteor showering him, Lex had orange hair, but now he's completely bald. So, yeah. So then we see Martha and Johnson, and they were hit by a meteor shower too, and their car was upside down, and then they see a toddler. They see a toddler, and they take him, and they say they can't keep him, but yeah. So yeah. And then they say wherever his parents are, they're not from Smallville. So yeah, and then we get into a transition. We get into a time jump to 2001, where we see Clark Kent, played by Tom Welling, and yeah, and he's on his computer, and yeah. So yeah, and he's like, hey, football team tryouts are today, so he goes, and but then he misses the bus, and 2 of his friends are betting on that Clark missed the bus. So Clark uses super speed and zooms, and then Clark's friends named Chloe and Pete, and yeah, and he's like, and Chloe's like, "Wait, weren't you just?" And he's like, sorry about," and then Pete's like, "Sorry about the new reporter," which is Chloe. So yeah. So he's like, "Hey, we want to try out for the football team." So she's like, "You want to try out with a football team? Yeah, let's just grab our mystery machine and drive." I thought that was funny. So and he's like, and didn't you hear about that the football team like grabs a freshman and ties them up to a scarecrow just like he did with that, just like he did with that kid in 1989. So yeah, and then Clark's about to go to Lana when Clark's about to go to Lana because we know her name is Lana because Chloe says that Clark can't get in 10 feet with Lana Lang without turning into a total freak show, and Clark falls because Lana necklace is made out of kryptonite, and yeah, and then Lana says, Clark, are you man or Superman? And he's like, I have no idea. So then as Clark and Lana are getting, her boyfriend shows up and they kiss, and Clark is like, and yeah, and then the guy's like, here Clark, you missed something, and makes Clark, you missed something Clark, and just makes Clark drop all his books. So yeah, well, and then we see a ball. Actually, we see Lex Luthor, and we see Lex Luthor, and for some reason hair still hasn't grown back, but yeah, and 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 he's going to a Luthor Corp, and he's like, thanks, Dad, because so 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 yeah, and then Clark and then Lex is on the road when like a truck wire hits him, it explodes on Lex's car, and then it hits Clark. They fall into the water, and Clark saves Lex. And then Clark's like, you saved me. And then Clark's like, yeah. Clark starts to realize that he's not a normal person because Clark says if he was a normal person, he would be dead. So Clark's realizing that he's not as normal as he thought he was. So yeah. So then so yeah. So then Mr. Kent is like so Lex is like, who saved his son later, and he's like, hey, Lex Luthor, and yeah, he's like John Kent, and he's like, you saved my son, so yeah. So yeah. So yeah. So like so so like this is like, I'll do anything for your son. And he's like, I'll do anything for your son. And Johnson's like, drive slower. So then we see this guy, and he punches like a glass case open, and he's like, time for some payback. So yeah. So then we see this like auto mechanic or garage mechanic, and he's like, hey, yeah, you're that Jeremy Creek kid who was tied with a scarecrow, and then he's like, he uses super strength, and he's like, what's up with you? And he's like, he electrocutes that technician to death because that's one of the jocks that put him. So yeah. So yeah. He's so so yeah. So so yeah. Clark's at home, and Martha's like, hey, it's a gift from Lex Luthor, and he's like, where's the keys to the car? And he's like, your dad has them, so. But Johnson's like, no, Clark, you're not keeping the car at all. So he's like, he's like, you're normal. And he's like, no, I'm not normal. And he puts his hand. He's like, I, I, my, I died in after Lex's car, and it hit me at like 100 per hour, and so yeah, and he's like, what are you trying? So yeah, so Clark's like, hey, Johnson's like, hey, Clark, you're out from this planet. And he's like, what are you trying to tell me? He's an alien. And he's like, I don't know. So yeah, and he's like, you should have told me. And Clark just zooms off because he's mad at his dad and telling him he was an alien. So he meets up with Lana, and Lana's talking to her dead parents, and she introduces her dead parents to Clark and all that stuff, and then Clark drives, then and then Lana drives Clark drives Lana home, and then who's sitting from far watching Clark and Lana hang out, but her boyfriend Whitney. So yeah, so and then and then Clark and Chloe and Pete take a picture of they take a picture of that Jeremy Creek kid, and they're like, hey, this guy doesn't look the same as he did in 1989. Clark says that's impossible. He would have been 26 in 2001, and yeah. So Clark like Pete's like, let's show him, and he's like, this thing turns into a scrapbook, but now it's called the Wall of Weird. And he's like, this is like mysterious thing going around Smallville, and then he sees a picture of Lana as this weird old Lana. He's like, this is all his fault. But then Whitney's like, what's going on between you ambushes Clark, and he's like, what's going on with you and Lana? He's like, but Clark's still feeling effects from the green kryptonite. He's like, hey Clark, you're the new Scarecrow. So he's like, oh yeah, Lana's necklace. This is the only thing the way you'll be close to her. So Whitney, yeah. Well, anyway, Lex go. Clark is like strung up to a cornfield, and yeah, and Jeremy Creek's put in more jocks in a coma, and yeah. So then he meets up Clark at the cornfield, and he's like, hey, you gotta let me go. But he's like, you're better this way, because that's the way he was. So, but then Lex sees him and then starts having flashbacks of when Lex was a kid and he saw him, and then I like how when the flashbacks happen, the flashbacks are like all red, and that's really interesting. And then once Lex gets out of the flashbacks, the kid's gone. So he saves Clark. He takes Lana's necklace for some reason, and then he has a battle with Jeremy Creek, and yeah, and he just and then he discovers that he's like, we're not the same, you and I. So yeah, so then there's electricity for like Jeremy Creek, and then that just wipes out his mind. So once he wakes up and he's like, he's like, who are you? And he's like, he's Clark, and you're from Smallville. He's like, he's from Smallville, and he's like, you're in Smallville, and he wants to go home, and that's the last we see of him. And Clark sees Lana and Whitney dance at the like dance, and then Lana dances with him, but then we don't. Yeah, Lana dances with him. I don't think either this is real. Clark actually dance with Lana, or just his imagination. Because once he stops dancing with her, she's gone, and he's like. And he's like, thanks for dancing, Lana, and that's how the episode ends. Okay, so Smallville, the first season, episode 1, was really good. I'm excited to do the rest of the seasons because this show is so good. And yeah, Jeremy Creek, pretty creepy guy. And he's a pretty creepy guy. And the way how Clark just zapped him with electricity and that just wiped his mind clean so he wouldn't remember who Clark was kind of like odd. But yeah. Lana, she's pretty cool. She's Whitney. I don't know how she's gonna feel when Whitney tells her about how he struggled with Clark Scarecrow. But yeah, Pete and Chloe, they're for their first appearances. They're pretty cool. Martha, Jonathan, for their first appearances, pretty cool. Lex, yeah. Now let's talk about Lex. Lex is very interesting because, as we know, in the comics, he and Clark are supposed to be like rivals, just like Reverse Flash and the Flash and Reverse Flash. But to see Clark and Lex be friends is super weird. I think in the later seasons he becomes like, but for the first season it's interesting. So yeah, and Lionel, for his only appearance in 19, the only time we saw Lex's dad was in 1999. Then, yeah, I think he'll appear more in the season. So yeah, this is so yeah, this is. I hope you like, I hope you like, comment, subscribe, and do all that. And I'll see you guys. And I hope you have a wonderful night. And I'll see you guys in the next Smallville.